July is pull-up month for us, and you're in either one of three camps. You're a rock star at it, you're so close, or you avoid it like the plague. The idea is that we're trying to move the needle regardless of where you're at, because we always be just a little bit better. So we start scaling appropriate for everyone and gradually work your way up. Everything seems out of reach until you have a game plan that makes sense. And so that's what we offer. So Lexi's going to start for our first scale, which is ring rows. So fortunately, we have low rings on the ground. You can start embarrassingly easy with this and actually make it quite challenging. All you need is a pair of low rings or a suspension trainer, something that you can hang from a door frame or a pull-up bar. But from here, we're going to utilize physics. Lexi's going to stand as far back as possible. And then from there, she's just going to lean back and trust her grip. And then from there, she's going to pull and stand until she can get her wrists to her ribs. So that's not even too far back for her. So she's going to scoot closer to get that full range of motion, and voila. So we're doing a number of things here. Working on the grip, because the more she scoots her feet forward in a second, the more load she's going to put through the hands and arms, and the less she's going to be supporting herself with her legs. So it's tough to quantify, but by adjusting the feet, we're changing the leverage so she's able to continuously add more intensity to the arms, thus challenging the strength component. As she's doing this, we want to make sure that the arms are the only thing that can possibly help. So she's going to pull back her toes and dig in her heels. This allows her to flex her quads and lock out her knee, and also allow her to engage her glutes. So she is completely stiff through the midline and able to pull and keep those elbows nice and tight so she can get good lat activation. Of course, there are other ways to modify by turning the hands down to get more of a high row to get the upper back. But for pull-up purposes, we really want to strengthen up those lats. So thumbs up, elbows close is going to be our weapon of choice. Now, as I alluded to already, you can make this pretty darn spicy. So you can go almost all the way forward, getting into what we would call an inverted row. So when your straps are completely vertical, now she's basically pulling up the entirety of her body weight, and voila. So already, even if you have very little equipment, and these are not very expensive, you can really be challenging that. The other piece that people tend to forget when it comes to training for pull-ups is reps matter. Not simply doing the reps, but how intense your reps are. The vast majority of people are limited by strength. Strength means 5 reps or less. So if you're not dead by 5, you need to make it harder. If you're banging out 10, 15, 20 in a row, that's only going to let you do more of that intensity of pull-up. As soon as it gets a little bit harder, you're not going to be able to do it. And so when you do this, you want to make sure that you are making them jaw-clenchingly tough by the time you get to 5. And then if you've achieved that, you're off to the races. Now, here we have a little bit more assistance, because if you want to get better at running, you run. If you want to get better at jumping, you jump. So if you want to get better at doing pull-ups, well, you do pull-ups. So we love to use bands as assistants. Again, way cheaper than trying to buy an assisted pull-up machine, but I can simply take a band and hook it over a bar. So we like to take the band and hook it over the rig. And then from there, we can use either a box, a step stool, or even a J-cup as a ladder to get up. So good etiquette for using the band and the J-cup is make sure that your step stool is high enough so that when you stand up, you're not having to work too hard to get your foot into the band, especially if you are training by yourself. So as Lexi gets in, she's going to lock that leg out. So that way she's not having to fight that band as much. She's going to cross over because we don't want that band to slide off the front of your toes and snap you in the face. And then from there, she's going to think about locking in her shoulder blades, getting them out of her ears so she has active shoulders. And then, because the bar is fixed, she's going to think about making her elbows touch her sides to get that lat activation once more. And voila, you have the pull-up. Now, with exercise bands, again, they're relatively cheap, so it's not a big cost investment to be able to get a number of different bands so that we can start to work our way down. Always go out the same way you went in. So she puts her foot back on, and now she can just simply kick off the band, and voila, we are out. And of course, this is now assistance, not resistance. So the lighter the band I have, the less help I'm getting, and the harder the pull-up is becoming. Now, even making a 5 or 10 pound decrease in assistance can be a night and day difference. So one of the fun things that we like to do to help mitigate that big jump sometimes that can happen is negatives or eccentric contractions. So when we do eccentric contractions, the idea is that we are trying to slowly lower through the rep. Most of us think about the hard part or the concentric being when I'm doing the pulling. So if I'm slowly lowering, I'm kind of doing a reverse pull-up or a negative. So Lexi's going to climb up once more with feeling, but this time, once she's in the band, we've given her very little assistance. This is going to be pretty tough for her. So she's going to actually, before she steps out, she's going to jump up to pull herself to the top really fast. So she's going to use the help of her legs. So if this band, let's assume, is not enough assistance to actually let her do a full pull-up, she's going to jump and get to the top really fast so she can get her chin over the bar and start at the end and then slowly work her way down to the beginning. The slower you can go, the more control you're able to demonstrate, and the harder this is going to be and the more demand it's going to be on the muscles. Take care that the more our muscle stretches, the less load it can support or the less tension it can support. So many times people will start strong, and then once they get to about halfway, they quickly fall to the end. So the idea is you want to maintain control and then double down and squeeze even harder through the tough part, because that's where you are the weakest and arguably where we're getting the most benefit out of doing these negatives. So once Lexi's ready, she's going to jump to get that chin over the bar. Now she's at the top, and we're going to slow 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe a little too slow, but that's all right. 6, because right at the end is when it's going to be the most spicy. Whoa, very nice. And then when she wants to do another rep of that, she'll put her foot back in the J cup. She'll stand back up once more, jump to the top, and then go for that second. And slow. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Great control. Very nice. Relax. So even though she did a whopping 2 reps, the other thing in exercise we talk about is time under tension. If you think about how long it takes you to do a pull-up, 1 Mississippi, that was 1. Not that bad. Still hard, but the time that her muscles had to work was about 1 second. She just did about 8 seconds of work. So even though it was 1 rep, that was a fair amount of time. So when you're doing eccentrics, 2 should feel like an eternity. So if I do 2 reps at about that intensity, it's going to be tough. And so then this is essentially the lightest band that we have to offer. So now there's nothing for it but to do a pull-up. No pressure. So same deal, feet together, toes pointed, maintaining that core. She's going to think active shoulders and then get those elbows into those sides. Up, 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 up. Woo! Congrats. Told you you'd get warm. Then, because your journey is never over in fitness, there's always something more you could be doing, then we have weighted pull-ups.
Not for this one.
So once you have body weight, obviously being able to then do about 3, 4, 5 is fine. But then if you want to continue to get even stronger, then your final investment is looking at a dip belt. So when we use the dip belt, it's a belt. Big part goes across the back. Easy enough. Now, I've seen a number of individuals who simply hook the weight through and then attach the belt. The problem is that if you have relatively slender hips like yours truly, it's easy for that belt to slip off. So what I've learned over the years is when you put on that belt, feed it through your weight, feed it through the first hook, and then attach it to the starting hook. So now when I stand up, the weight actually pulls the belt tight. So the heavier the weight, the tighter it cinches, the less likely it is to slip off your hips. Now I don't have to do this like goofy open-legged stance as I'm trying to pull up because I'm busy trying to pull and not drop the weight at the same time. And now once I'm in position, then Same concept. Just like that band, I like to kind of hook and hold that weight in place so that it doesn't swing and throw off my center of mass as I pull. Brace, set the shoulders. And now, sky's the limit. You can continue to get stronger by continuing to add more and more weight with the same principles we applied from the very beginning. That's how you can go from A to Z, training your pull-ups.